Let's talk about Silver. In the world of mainline Pokemon, rivals have been a consistent feature from the very first games all the way to the most recent titles. They've gone through a number of changes over the years, and opinion differs when it comes to whether those changes have ultimately been a good thing or a bad thing. But I like to maintain that each rival provides us with something unique that deserves to be put under a spotlight for a few minutes. So in this video series, I'm making my way through all of the main rivals in the Pokemon video games, and exploring their characters, their relationships with the player, and any other fun and interesting stuff we can think of along the way. Today, we're diving into the Generation 2 rival, introduced in Pokemon Gold and Silver. Silver is his name, and Villainy is his game. He is about as antagonistic a rival as we've ever had, right from the off. He literally physically assaults us during the very first interaction we have with him. Well, it's an optional first interaction. You can just ignore him here. But this is where it all starts. At the very beginning of the game, we see Silver peering into the lab in New Barktown, looking kinda shady. But at this point, you could easily think he's just being a nosy kid, wants to know what's going on in the Pokemon lab. It's not until we're heading back from the errand Professor Elm sends us on that we learn of this guy's true nature. He has stolen a starter Pokemon from the lab. That's what he was eyeing up earlier from the side window. Our rival always gets a starter Pokemon, but this is the only time our rival has taken it by force. He's not a naturally occurring rival, like the neighbor kids and Professor's relatives in most other games. So that immediately pushes the dynamic here way off kilter. In the Generation 1 games, the segue into naming our rival is... Actually, it's not that natural, is it? Because Professor Oak has forgotten his own grandson's name somehow. But it's gently weaved into the opening admin of the game. This is of course talking about the earlier games where the rivals do have a canon name, but we can give them whatever name we want. And I've seen some funny ones over the years. Let me know a funny name you've given a rival if you have any. You kinda have to be British to understand this one, but I called mine a chav once, so it'd just say a chav wants to battle. Anyway. This time, he's not a natural part of the opening sequence, so the first time we encounter him, he has no name yet, so he is addressed on screen as ? After we finish the battle with him, he says, "My name is ? And this created a bit of a generational misunderstanding for a lot of us. It's one of those commonly spoken about things. When you get back to the lab, and the police officer asks you what the red-haired boy's name is, did you simply enter ? In my first playthrough, I absolutely did. I assumed that putting anything else would be the wrong action. I think I had it in my head that we'd find out his true name after a bit more investigation was done by the police here, or maybe he'd tell us his real name one of the next times we encounter him. So I remember that was a bit of a facepalm moment when I'd gotten all the way to the radio tower takeover and his name was still ? So Silver sets himself apart from the other rivals in a couple of ways right from the off. If you were coming from Pokemon Red and Blue back in the day, you were kind of accustomed to the Pokemon rival character being hot-headed and dismissive, but Silver definitely takes things up a notch from Blue. Blue likes to tease and jibe and he's a bit full of himself, but Silver is nefarious at his very core. He views people as obstacles, and Pokemon as blunt tools to conquer those obstacles. He has an obsession with, I don't even want to say power, it's more like an obsession with not being weak. He's constantly yammering on about weak trainers and weak Pokemon. It's like he wants to avoid being that thing at all costs. And you get the feeling that there's even a certain level of fear there. Like there's definitely some underlying experience, or potentially even trauma that's led to him showing these behaviours. We'll touch on that in a few minutes. He even has a hefty disdain for Team Rocket, which I remember being really intrigued by as a kid, because Silver himself seemed like a villain, but he doesn't like the other villains. So it was like this whole, oh, not all villains are the same kind of lesson for me. It's us against Team Rocket, and then Silver against everyone seemingly. Silver's progression as a character throughout the Gen 2 games is kinda slow. Our first couple of interactions with him once the game gets running are kind of building up the idea of who he is and how he sees the world. There's a lot of him talking about strength and weakness and the futility of emotion. We see just how cruel and uncaring he is, and that's echoed by the other characters that have the displeasure of interacting with him. And then as we get later on into the games, we see him starting to question his philosophy a little bit. Once we've beaten him a solid 3 or 4 times, there is a bit of introspection sparking up in his head. What I do like about Silver's arc is that it runs very parallel to our own. So we're both on a Pokemon journey, but we're taking on that journey with 2 very opposing mantras and attitudes. We get entrusted with a starter Pokemon, he steals one. We raise Pokemon through care and respect, he raises them through pure aggression and spite. We want meaningful growth, he just wants to be the best by any means. So the destination is essentially the same for both of us, but we're getting to see it progress via 2 entirely different philosophies. But of course, the road Silver is going down, while parallel to ours throughout 70 to 80% of the journey, will reach a dead end before it reaches the destination. And Silver figures this out right near the end, when we defeat him in Victory Road. Well, he's 90% there, I'd say. He's taken on some very important lessons by this point, both from his defeats at the hands of the player character, and also Lance makes a pretty decent impression on him when we're raiding the Team Rocket hideout in Mahogany Town. And yeah, he's coming to this junction where he's reevaluating and thinking, is there something I'm missing here? I've hit a brick wall while other people are continuing to grow. Why is that? And it's left kind of open-ended. We battle Silver in the post-game in Mount Moon, and after that there's the implication that he's going to change his ways. But you won't actually see that first leaf of change unless you take up the optional extra battle against him on a Monday or a Wednesday up in the Indigo Plateau. In this final battle, you'll notice just the one difference in his team from that earlier Mount Moon battle, and that is that his Golbat has finally evolved into a Crobat. And the significance of that is that Golbat to Crobat is a friendship evolution. You have to develop Golbat's friendship level to a certain point for it to be able to evolve. So we can deduce from that Silver is now treating his Pokemon with care and respect. It's finally happened. It's a satisfying arc that I think is nicely paced throughout the game. Silver's character and backstory gets a significant extra branch added to it later down the line with the Gold and Silver remakes. While it never explicitly says it outright within the dialogue, it is made canon that Silver is the son of the Team Rocket leader Giovanni. Actually, the most explicit clue we get in a mainline game of this is in the post-game of Fire Red and Leaf Green, where a Team Rocket member mentions that Giovanni's son has red hair. And at this point, there really weren't many prominent young characters with red hair in the games. It was obvious to us that they're talking about Silver here. But yeah, during the Celebi event in Heartgold Soulsilver, so it's again pretty well hidden from most players, but it is in here, we see an interaction between Giovanni and Silver that took place 3 years before the events of the Generation 2 games. And this all throws an extra spanner into the system, but also helps us fit the puzzle together at the same time. It fills in Silver's backstory a fair bit more, and helps us understand where this spiteful thirst for power and brutal disdain for weakness has stemmed from. He witnessed his father falter against Red, a child, and essentially give up his world domination plans because of it. And he took that personally, because he clearly saw his father as this powerful figure to mold himself on. And now that figure has just surrendered power, in Silver's opinion, far too easily. Giovanni made himself look weak in his eyes, and so Silver is now determined to not be like his father, and to be even more merciless and brutal in pursuit of power. And to be fair, he does do what I don't think Team Rocket ever achieves themselves, which is steal a Pokemon and keep that Pokemon. Team Rocket usually gets caught and has to give the Pokemon back, but Silver takes that starter Pokemon and is never brought to justice for it. Very interesting, seeing as he doesn't exactly blend into a crowd with this look. Silver is a really interesting character. He's probably still my favourite rival in the series even after all these years. I do wonder about any potential involvement he could have in future mainline games. He obviously would have to be a very different kind of character, seeing as he has turned over a new leaf by the end of the Gen 2 games. So could he perhaps return as an ally to the player character? Or as a prominent trainer in some other context, like a gym leader or a battle tower trainer? I personally think he'd be lying low. He is still a wanted criminal for stealing that starter Pokemon, so if anything, I could see the player character encountering him somewhere way out in the sticks. You know, maybe he's created his own unofficial gym somewhere to keep himself sharp, battling against travelling trainers as they pass by. There are possibilities there. Even if it's just a cameo, it is really cool to see old characters make an appearance in newer games. So I hope we get something at some point. So why don't you guys drop us your assessments of Silver? Do you find him compelling as a character? As a rival? Would you like to see a rival like this again? Being a character that made quite an impression on me, I'd love to hear some other thoughts and opinions on him. While you're down there, please do take a second to hit the like button, it's totally free and it helps a lot. Subscribe for more Pokemon videos, special thanks to our channel members here, and of course join the Discord to chat more over there. Thanks so much for watching, take it easy guys, and I'll catch you all in the next one.